Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Owner's Box. I'm Billy Koch, founder and managing partner of Little Red Feather Racing Club. Joining me alongside, as always, is
Wrong
the
way.
great.
You have to point the other
Oh, it's
way.
the other way?
Yeah, look.
Oh, no. Okay, I'm
There you
so
go.
confused. Michelle, welcome to the show. You look fantastic as always. You look bright and cheery and happy. You had a
The
good
light, the
weekend?
lighting, the Alex Earl. This is the Alex Earl selfie light. See?
What does that mean?
So there's like a chick that I'm obsessed with on social media. Now the world's obsessed with her, named Alex Earl, and she does all of her TikToks with this like. I'll show it to you. This selfie
Okay.
light, and everyone says it, like, changes your life because
Oh,
it's
wow,
so
it
bright.
does. It looks great. I got to get one of those.
Right? Because like
Thank
otherwise
you.
I'd be like this, which
Yeah,
I actually prefer like this.
No.
But
The
you're
selfie
supposed to
light
be
is
well
so much
lit.
better.
So
Selfie light is so much better. Well, listen, we have a lot of stuff to cover today, but we want to get right to our guest. He's this very, very cool guy that you and I have both known for a very long time. His name is Mark Martinez. Mark, get on up here. There he is.
down
What's
here.
going on, guys? Hey.
I think Mark was one of our very first guests when we did the show 10 years ago. Is that possible?
I like the fact that Mark loves our new format.
Well, this is my third time on, and I absolutely love the new format. I mean, look at you guys. You look fabulous. Great lighting, by the way, Michelle.
Yes. Great
Thank
lighting
you.
for Michelle. I do not look
You
good,
look
but I
great.
appreciate
Your
that.
lighting's good today.
Oh, really?
Your glasses
Well,
are still glary, though.
I know. I
You
got to
look,
get
you look young, Billy. Yeah, something's going well. By the way, I want you to know I wore this jersey.
Yep.
Just for you.
Unbelievable.
Throwback.
So that was the LRF Cares softball tournament that Mark was the main sponsor in, and we had so much fun that day. Michelle, were you there?
I was there for one of them. It wasn't
It was
that one,
awesome.
I don't think.
We had a charity softball tournament. Mike Pipey was MVP. It was an awesome day. I couldn't move for like a week afterwards. I think I threw my back. It was horrible, but it was so much fun. We raised a ton of money for LRF Cares, which supports aftercare, which I know, Mark, is very important to you.
Told me, if you remember, you were the winning pitcher that day, and I was the losing pitcher that day.
That's okay. You know what? Someone has to win and someone has to lose. And look at you. I love the facial hair. You look fantastic. Listen, we have a lot to discuss very quickly because one of the reasons Mark contacted Michelle and I after the last show, when we had Pat Cummings on, we talked a lot about this industry stuff, what's going on with micropoli, what's going on in the world of thoroughbred horse racing. I think Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, he's one of the most passionate owners we have in the game, loves racing just like we do, and just wants to make it better. And I think that, so Mark reached out to us after. We said, why don't you just come on the show and we can talk about some of your ideas, because he has some great ideas. But before we do that, give us a little update, a stable update, because we still are the Owner's Box. You're still a big owner. We know we had probably some older horses that have trickled away, but anything new we should be looking out for, Mark?
Well, I will say I'll wrap some quotes around this. The glory days, the run that I had in California has slowed down for a while. It has slowed down, but currently I have, just to give you some idea, and I think some of this will be relevant to what we talk about, is I have 11 horses in training currently. Now, I have made some changes in my program, some of it to kind of spark some enthusiasm. I was kind of flatlining a little bit. And so...
Was it enthusiasm for you or enthusiasm for people in your syndicate?
Well, I'm not really a syndicate.
Or like your group.
I have, so Michelle,
partners, sorry.
Agave is me. Now, I do have partners, and that's what I want to talk about. So I have 11 horses in training. 10 of them I have in partnerships, and I actually have 9 different partnerships.
Wow.
Now, not syndicates in the way that Billy, and Little Red and Eclipse and others have, and West Point, but just partnerships, named partners that are part of, each individual horse. And that's something I would like to get to and talk about, because I don't think the game has evolved and caught up with some of the some of the challenges, if you will, that faces different partners. And I think there's some things we can do to make it more attractive for owners that are running in partnerships. So that's something I'd really like to get to. I mean, Billy, I'll just throw one out right now. I don't want to get out, if you don't mind me just jumping right in.
No, go for it. That's why you're here.
Yeah. And just so you know, I have horses in 4 different states with 4 different trainers right now. And so I'm mixing it up a little bit. But if you, one of the things that not having, I'm an advocate for putting ownership percentages into both the racing form, Equibase. And the reason is, for example, LRF will probably never win a title at a track, nor win an Eclipse Award. Saul Kuhlman never have an opportunity to do this because these folks have horses with so many different partnerships. So what I'd like to do is disclose what the ownership percentages are so that you can accumulate. If you have half a horse and you win a race, you get credit for half.
Oh, we're going to talk off the air on this one, Mark. I've gone down this road already. We've talked about it actually on the show, and this is an idea that's been around, and we could use a guy like you to actually take over. This is a jockey club thing, an Equibase thing, and it's something that is obviously totally the right idea. I always say, like, how can we have the technology that can say how many dribbles Steph Curry had in the fourth quarter of a basketball game, but we can't figure out to do proper statistics in horse racing. Ownership statistics.
Well, first of all, just because to me, I'm not one to subscribe to that's the way it's always been, so that's the way it's always going to be. If we don't evolve with the game, we're going to go the way of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's my opinion. And so I think we can, and it spills into other areas, right? Not just awards and titles, but it spills into, I think the handicapper wants to know. I think the other owners want to know, because if I'm looking to potentially claim a horse and I see 75% of it's owned by LRF, and I've got a read on how they handle and move, I might say, oh no, if Billy's in for 50, he's looking to lose that horse. Or I might go the other way and say, oh, I know Billy's trying to get away with one. Yep. I can also say if Billy owns 25%, he doesn't own that decision. So it's good for the better, because it allows them to get a better read on owner-trainer behavior. It's also good for owners that are in the claiming game, gives us more insight. The other thing is the accounting thing. You guys are in California, I'm in California. One of the challenges is they have one named, a partner who's 10 or, that they capture. All earnings are reported against that one. Then you've got to distribute the fund. Look, I'm a IT guy. I'm not an accounting person, for heaven's sakes. Yeah. So and to say, well, we can't do it. The trainers do it. They bill me. I can show you my invoices.
Right.
The vets do it. They know how to do it. The transportation companies know how to do it. And I find it odd that somebody described as the bookkeeper / paymaster can't capture that and report earnings based on percentages. Right. So look, there's so many things with that one shift that we could make it better for partnerships. And by the way, back in the 30s when Seabiscuit was, around, or in the 70s when Secretary was around, we didn't have partnerships like we have today.
Correct.
So we need to evolve. So that's one of the things, look, if Mike Rapoli wants to, take on issues, I dropped him a text and I said, let's not swing for the fences. Let's string together some singles, small wins, easy wins, things that you can then evangelize to gain and establish credibility for the NTA and get some support behind you. But if we're going to sit here and do nothing but tackle huge issues, it's going to be like Congress. It's gridlock.
Well, you talked about, there's one word that describes what you just did, and that's transparency. Yeah. And that's what we're looking for in our game constantly. So I know you have a giant list. Let's go through it. Michelle, where do you look at, Mark sent us this beautiful list. I love that we just jumped right onto the partnership aspect and something that actually should be done. Where do you want to go next?
So just since you're talking about, you have a series of these, single hits that can get us through. Do you think that the most important thing is naming ownership and dealing with our back end? Or is there something that you feel like is something we can do and implement sooner that's going to be impactful?
Yeah, well, let me give you one of the easy ones. This is what I would consider to be the low-hanging fruit. And it shows you a little bit about the dysfunction that we have in the game today, which is driven by the fact, we all know this is widely talked about now, and that is we're a national sport regulated at the state level.
100%.
Right. And so we
always needs to be said.
Yeah, that's the key. And by the way, that's not something that challenges the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NFL. They have a governing body that has, and this is what the problem Mike's going to run into with the NTA. The governing body, Adam Silver, he has the authority he needs to execute in his role. Mike doesn't have any authority as the NTA. NTA didn't have any authority. So what he needs, and it's not an owner's, I hate to use the word association, but we need all the stakeholders. I was reading the Pollock report. I guess it was just before New Year's, and Ray talked about the stories they didn't cover. And one of the stories he didn't cover was this idea that every stakeholder believes they're the most important component to the game, right? Whether you're the owners, whether you're the breeders, whether you're the track operators, whether you're the trainers. And he said, you know what, let's just get a wheel of fortune, and every day we'll spin it, and whichever one it lands on, they can be king for a day, and then they can make decisions, we can move on. Now, obviously that's a lot of tongue in cheek, but it does show that there is no one person in our game. There is no commissioner that can drive, because they're not going to own it all. We're going to need collaboration and cooperation across the stakeholders. But anyway, the one that I think will illustrate, and I think it's easy, is condition books. As owners, I mean, I know, Billy, you're actively in them. Michelle, I don't know how much time you spend in them, but I know your husband's in it all the time. So, and this is real. I get this feedback from people all the time. Open the California condition book and you'll see other than allowance, 65,000 plus, and I'm going to round, plus 20,000 for Calbreds. Open up the Turfway condition book and it says 70,000 includes 35,000 for KTDF. Then you go down to Florida and you've got 92,000 includes 20,000 for Florida breds. If you want to know now, mind you, that's Gulfstream, Astronic track, and doing it just the opposite way as Santa Anita Astronic track. Let me also show you.
Just make it all the same, is what you're saying. Consistent.
Well, is that because the racetracks want to do it different, or is that because the people that are giving us the funds, so like the CTBA in this instance in California, is it because they want it to be read differently?
So I'll tell you. So I sit on the racing committee of the TOC. And it's something that we've talked about. I brought this point to Bill Nader. He said, this was last year, I'll take it to the symposium in Arizona, see if we can get some consensus on this. And he came back, and I hate to say it, he came back empty-handed. In other words, no resolution. And I sent a note to Bill, and I'm like, if we can't come together on something as simple as how we report a person a condition book, how are we gonna tackle the stuff that really matters, right? The big stuff.
That's one of the simplest.
And then the last one, I'll tell you, open up the Turfway. I have horses there. Open up the Turfway condition book. Not only do they report that the way where the 70,000 includes 35,000 for KTDF or whatever the splits are, their claiming races are just the opposite. It shows the purse is 35,000. It says plus 7,000 or 7,500. So they don't even have a consistent written book between claiming and allowance there. We've got Stronach can't get lined up. The states can't get lined up. And if we can't get every major track to come together and say, okay, we're going to report it this way. We agree this way, do it. And Michelle, what drives it is, I remember the first time I saw this was many years ago. Fairgrounds did it, and they stuck it in. And it inflated their purses, and no one was really ready for it.
That's why, right?
And they assumed they were getting the money. I had a friend of mine recently claimed a horse at Churchill. He was in jail, which we'll talk about. He wanted to run the horse at Turfway. He made the decision to claim a PA bred. He looked at Turfway and saw he was running for 50 cents on the dollar compared to the rest of the horse in the field. Because when he first looked at the purse, he saw 70. He didn't notice that 35 of that or whatever was for Kentucky breds only. So let's just make it one.
Yeah, these are really simple, but again, not so simple, as you found out because you went to an appropriate person, you're on a committee, and nothing changes. Now, I know because I run at different racetracks. We run at different racetracks. I think I'm a semi-intelligent person, not super intelligent by any means, but semi-intelligent. I have trouble figuring out the races at other places, just even allowance conditions, even trying to look at an index. Like you're right.
Brother, you've been in the game. You've been in the game for what, 100
Billy,
years?
that's what your trainer's for. That's why owners should stay out of
Right.
Yeah, we don't,
right,
But
here's the thing. I see what you're saying. That's another a simple step, but these are again, this is minutia. These are easy. So let's give us another one that's on your list.
Okay, well, I want to talk about one, and it's I'm sure a lot of people feel the pain, but it's another easy one. Well, let me say that this isn't so easy because it involves all the jurisdictions, but I want to talk about licensing. Go. So,
preach, Mark, preach.
So, for example, I understand it's a revenue driver for the states, but at the end of the day, does it move the needle? I mean, let's talk about it. I mean,
even if it's a revenue driver, why can't we be listed in like a database, and then every additional state you want to add to your license, you don't have to go through anything. You just like click and pay.
Well,
right?
I never did the national compact, Mark. What is that? I've never done that.
I joined it. I joined it this month for the first time. I always ran around getting my own licenses and what drove me is Florida wanted prints. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay. And some states want prints. Others don't want prints. Don't ask me why we need prints today. Come on. I mean, really? But I'll give you an example. I'm also so that was to get licensed in Florida. I need to get licensed in Arkansas. Let me give you an example. In Arkansas, they not only in some states require stable names and some don't. Billy, you know this, right? Yeah. You register as the owner. You also have to register a stable name. Some states don't require that. And other states require you to register the partnerships. And so at Oaklawn, I had to get licensed, had to license me, had to license my stable name. Then I had to license the partnership on the horse that I was running under. Well, I just told you I have 11 horses and 9 different partnerships. So now I need 9 different partners agreements in order to run my horse.
They all have to be signed and they all have to be
notarized.
Yeah. Have to have their fingerprints.
We need an easier way. I think the bottom line here.
And the compact is really only part of the answer because they actually still have to comply with whatever each state needs, right? So if Arkansas needs every partnership to be individually licensed, then they have to complete the paperwork. In my case, they would have to do it 9 times if that's what I was trying to get accomplished. Sure. Again, the regulators are part of the stakeholders here, right? It's the owners, it's the track operators, it's the trainers, it's the regulators. We can't ignore the regulators. Can't we corral these guys for the good of the game? Mike wants.
Well, that was my question, Mark. Have you looked? I don't know what the actual group would be. It's almost like it's not the RCI, right? Because that's the rules, but it's some type of coordinated effort between the states, whatever that alphabet group is. That when we actually talk to each other, and I don't know what that is, and I don't know. Again, goes back to that idea, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but that centralized body that we don't have. And that's the difference between horse racing and these other, whether it's sports leagues or whatever it is, because we are all controlled again by these individual states. And it makes it difficult for a guy like you. All you want to do, Mark, let's be honest. You want to run your horses. You want to be successful. You want to win races. You want to go out and have a cocktail after you win and party it up with your friends. That's what you love about this sport. You love the horses, watching them win. And you're coming on this podcast, and for the last 15 minutes, all you've done is say how hard it is just to do that. And that has nothing to do with owning horses.
And by the way, I've been in the game for 15 years.
Yeah. Imagine a newcomer.
If we want to go recruit new people into our sport, Billy, how are we going to do that? And then turn them over to this stuff. And Michelle, I'll do respect to Ryan. Look, owners are going to look in condition books. It's not like the old days where the trainers kept the owners in the back seat, or in fact in the trunk most of the time. We know what the sales results look like. We have this thing called the internet. I mean, I'm sure most trainers are aware of this now. So we're more educated. By the way, that's the kind of owners we want in the game. We want collaboration. I told Phil this years ago. I don't know how many he has today, but let's say he's got 180 horses.
That's an under for sure.
Yeah, and let's say I have 18. He can't manage every detail of my 18 as tightly as I can, because I'm not looking at the other 162 or whatever that is. So we work together as a team. It doesn't become adversarial. We're friends, we're partners, we have a common goal. And so I just think we want that kind of owner. So I've heard the stories about the owner with the condition book. Yes, I'm guilty.
I think it's an old joke though, right? I mean, like when Ryan gets condition books, he brings home a bunch of them and they like sit on the desk. So
yeah, I think those are the old days. All right, good. First 2 points, I think right. You're nailing it.
I want to get right to California, Mark, because
wait, please. I got to talk about one more, and then because I know California is going to go. We're going to go a little deeper on that.
Okay.
I got to get one that I'm extremely passionate about, and I've been affected by, and I think it's something that requires some reform, and that is claiming.
Thank you.
So to me, claiming is an important part of our game. So I'm gonna lay out a scenario that I think will illustrate the point. So first of all, I always thought that the claiming rules were controlled and regulated by the states, right? But now we have these things called house rules, right? Which means in the case of Churchill Downs Inc., they wrote a house rule that had such an overreaching effect that, first of all, I have a horse that I've had to pass 2 races for a spot because I was in jail. So here's the scenario. Let's just say at Churchill this past November meet, there was a 3-year-old filly in a 2 other than optional 100, and I'm in for the tag, and I reach in and I drop on that filly. She runs off, wins by 4, and runs a 102 by her, going 7/8. That's in November. Where should she be in December? On December 26th,
La Brea.
She should be in the La Brea. Grade 1, as an owner who runs in Kentucky, as an owner that cares about the game. By the way, as an owner that tries to reload my stable from the sale of brood mares that I built some residual value in, I would not have been permitted to run her in the La Brea and possibly win a grade 1. So that's
just because you can't take a horse. The rule was written that you can't take a horse off the grounds.
Yeah, like for like 90 days they can't run or something ridiculous.
Yeah, the rule there, the house rule that was written was 60 days after the meet, and the way the rule is actually written, not how it's enforced, is 60 days after the first of the year, January 1st. But what they did was they said 60 days after the end of the meet or January 1st. So the La Brea being December 26th, I fell into that category. Now, one of the things I would say is, how does that benefit the game? What are we trying to accomplish? Even the filly that I claimed a filly recently off of Klarovich and Chad Brown. Now, my opinion, if Klarovich and Chad Brown have one in for a tag, they're done with the horse, and so if I'm stupid enough to take a horse off of them, I shouldn't be handcuffed, right? So, but I was. I couldn't. I had a race, and by the way, a filly winning as a 2-year-old is valuable from a long-term residual value position versus a 3-year-old. So I wanted to run her. We had a spot picked out for on December 31st. We weren't permitted to run. We tried to enter. We weren't permitted to run. We were.
You tried to enter where?
At Oaklawn.
At Oaklawn.
And so my thought was, and by the way, surprising to me, but the rule was a Churchill rule enforced by Oaklawn. But my point.
Well, sure, because there's reciprocity, right? Because nobody wants, like, I'm going to use a terrible word here that's not the right word, okay? But it's the same thing with California. When California has horses that are just constantly being claimed and shipped out of state, well, we don't have any horses that come in and replace those horses. So not that I get the rule, Mark, because I agree. And you should, if you claim a horse and buy a horse, you should be able to run that horse wherever you want. That was, hate to bring up this name too, that was the whole Jerry Jam Gotchin thing several years ago.
It was. And by the way, I think he's right, but I'm okay with some common sense restrictions. You know, for many years, the restrictions were you couldn't move till the end of the meet.
But or you have to run it back once if possible, or
well, I'll give you an example. I mean, I claimed a dirt horse. Kentucky didn't even have a dirt offering for me. So I'm not saying that they need to allow for every condition, but I had a friend of mine claim a Maryland bred turf horse at Churchill last year. They wanted to go run in a Maryland bred stake and they weren't permitted. They were held in jail. And oh, by the way, Churchill, if you remember, their turf course was unsafe. So this turf horse, grass top and bottom, couldn't run. Churchill didn't gain anything. The horse ended up shipping to California to Phil and running at Del Mar in November, or whatever it was. But my point is, the state didn't gain, Churchill didn't gain, and all you did was agitate 10, a group of 10 owners owning 10% of a horse that we'd like to bring and develop into the game, left a bad taste in their mouth. So Churchill's behavior and their actions aren't in the best interest of the game. I mean,
but Mark, we've talked about this ad nauseum. I mean, yes, Churchill's interests are in the best interest of guess who, usually.
But that, Billy, that's what's broken.
The instance he's describing, then it wasn't in the best interest of Churchill at all.
Yeah, they gained nothing.
Everybody pissed off.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And oh, by the way, Billy, the mere fact that, well, they're only out for their own interests is why we're where we're at today. 100%. The tracks are out for theirs. The owners are out for theirs. The trainers are out for theirs. Each and every state is out for theirs. That's not coming together for the good of the game.
Correct.
So what we need, what I'm advocating for, is a standard rule that makes sense. And if it's like, I know what it is that I checked with Florida. I know what it is in California. I know at Oakland. I know it in Kentucky. New York, why don't we just get all the major tracks together and say, all right, why I didn't make up the phrase 100 years ago, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. What's good for one track should be good for the other. And the rules should be fair. The streets the roads travel in and out. And by the way, every horse I claim is likely to find its way back to Kentucky. Right. So I don't see how they gain. So, I want to.
Seems like it's so funny because we talk about what we were talking about before, and the keyword was transparency, right? Mm-hmm. The next keyword is common sense. Just like no one's trying to cheat anybody. I just want to run my horse where I want to run my horse. I don't. Yeah. So the common sense here. It's almost like you can break it down and you can talk about a lot of different factors using common sense, which we do not in this game. What I do like, Mark, is you're coming up with ideas that have potential solutions. So but those solutions, again, we need to work on. Whatever group can work on it and get to a point where it just makes sense. Because also, and I don't know if I want to go on this tangent right now because I know we have a bunch of things still to talk about, but you talked about just getting rid of the claiming game. It started, we saw that article about at the
rating.
Yeah, the ratings, stuff like that. My personal belief, I believe that anything new should be at least thought about, tried, come up with some type of concept, work on it. There are people that are, far smarter than I am, that can come up with a rating system that might actually help our game. Now, it might change the landscape of the claiming game. It will change the landscape of the claiming game. But even, I remember 20 years ago, we were talking about auction races at the end, where at the end of the race, they talked about it. So I guess my question is, what's the group or who is going to take these? Who's going to listen to this 30 minutes that we just spoke about, and we still have time, and do something about it? That's, I guess, my question. Is that my job?
Well, no, and it certainly isn't one guy who owns an IT company in San Antonio, Texas, right? So here's the thing. This is where I think the NTA needs to be expanded. If I was looking for a way to have centralized governance or oversight, I would invite all of the stakeholders. I would have a board that was comprised of, and it would be weighted based on, shall we say, handle or size, or some metric around importance and on the landscape. But Churchill would have a seat at the table. NYRA would have a seat at the table. Oaklawn, Florida, Stronach, however you want. Then owners would have 3 or 4 people that were my elected representatives on this stakeholder panel that are set here to. And so if you had the track operators, if you had the state regulators represented, if you had the owners represented, now you can't make it too big, because too big, nothing gets accomplished.
Right. But you need to also feature
representation for each type of owner.
And the players. What about the players?
So here's
need to be up there too, and the breeders are going to want their say. So you got to be careful.
I understand. So here's my thought on the bettors. First of all,
you're a gambler.
All right, that's what I was going to say. The bettors will be well represented by the owners. That's my take. I don't necessarily think they need a separate seat at the table. We're going to take care of them because we understand the importance that they represent to our game, right? So there's 2 people that pay the freight in our game. It's the owners and it's the bettors. And the bettors pay it through takeout, right? So and most of us got to the game. We either came through the betting window or the breeding shed, by and large. And so I'm just saying that the bettors, you can't have too many bodies. If I look at the chair and the 4 legs of the chair, and because the next thing you know, the vets want a seat, and we're going to have the hot walkers have representation on the panel. No, you get the 4 pillars that make up the game, and we look out for the interests of the game as a whole. That's where I think we fail sometimes, is we're only looking at it through our own lens. Mm-hmm. We need to look at it through the other's lens. And I'm going to throw this out there, and then we'll talk about California, because this will be a great segue into it. Talk about looking through the other lens. So I'm an owner, and if I was only interested in the owner's interest, I wouldn't have written a white paper on a trainer incentive in Southern California, right? I was advocating for taking ship and win money that the owners, enjoy, and rechanneling that money to trainers. And the reason I'm for this, and I'm going to give you a couple reasons. Number one, giving the money to the owners, you're paying, in many cases, you're paying me. I'll just use myself as an example. My horses are going to Phil anyway, whether you give me an incentive to send them there or not. Second thing is owners are such a small incremental increase in our horse inventory that it doesn't move the needle much. And so I think a trainer incentive accomplishes 2 things. First of all, it might get the Brad Coxes, Steve Asmussen's, Chad Browns, Mike Makers, and I'm not talking about, sending a handful of horses for the Del Mar meet. I'm talking about stabling in Southern Cal, because the money adds up quickly. That's number one. And the second thing is, whether we want to admit it or not, California is probably the highest state to own and operate a training business. And so what I would advocate for is what we would call in business a COLA, a cost of living allowance. In other words, the industry as a whole recognizing that California is so important to the game across all jurisdictions that we need to prop them up. We may not need to prop them up forever, but let's face it, guys, an alternate source of revenue like a lot of the other states has is not coming anytime soon.
Right.
We're not going to get that. I mean, the state's not behind it enough to get it done. Hell, we couldn't even get sports wagering, through, let alone slots, and the tribes own that. So we know it's not going to happen. So do all the other jurisdictions stick their head in the sand and say, that's California's problem, that ain't mine? Or do they recognize if California collapses, then the industry might not be far behind? So here's what I say. The next question is, well, Mark, how do you fund that? And let's talk about trainers. Brad Cox could bring 50 horses here. Chad Brown could, and Chad Brown's a turf biased trainer. One of the beauties of California is we have year-round turf racing, beautiful turf racing, right? He's not here. We haven't done enough. And here's what I would say if I was a trainer. Okay, I can go to California and pay, and I'll be conservative, 20% more to operate a business. And oh, by the way, run for 30% less money. I got a 50-point delta right there. I don't know if that was a division in M2 technology, it wouldn't survive. Right. So, and so you say, well, how do we fund it? Redirect Ship and Win money into a trainer incentive program. Second thing is go to the people that benefit. And Billy, you talked about this with Pat Cummings, that benefit by California's presence in the game.
Breeders,
the farms, the stallion owners, by the way, the sales companies, the consigners. Go talk to Mark Taylor. Go talk to, Boyd. These guys, and I'm not woven in enough to say what the numbers would be, but I always use a number. I think stud fees, mare prices, foal prices would drop 25% if California didn't prop up the sales of those horses, or whether we're the bidder and winner or the underbidder and driving up the price. So how much does that mean in a multi-billion-dollar? So Kentucky racing doesn't need California, but Kentucky thoroughbred business needs California. So, but who's going to take that on? Not some guy in San Antonio. I just say, so that, and the reason I bring that up is I was looking at it from the lens of the trainer and what's in the best interest of the game, not lining my own pockets. And the last thing I'll say, because Michelle, I know your husband's a trainer. I'll say this about most owners. My horse racing operation does not put food on my table and gas in my tank. I can't say that about the trainers. That's their profession. And the fact that we're not willing to step up and help them, because we're friends with our trainers. We're not adversaries. We want them to be strong. We want them to do better. So let's get together and figure out a way to help prop up the training in California and incentivize trainers to run here, and maybe we can rebuild our horse population. That's the way I'm looking at it. Anyway,
I think in addition though to incentivizing people to come, we have to reward the people that have been here. That's like the big drawback that we always say as a small time trainer for Ship and Win is you guys are drawing all these rich people to buy horses and bring them here with these big barns, but the people that are making their day-to-day living scraping by are not getting anything. The ones that can't afford to go and buy a horse somewhere else or whatnot.
That's Michelle, that's a real problem, I think. And I think it's worthy of, of consideration. I understand what they're trying to do. They're like, you're already here. We don't need to incentivize you to come here. But the way we need to look at it is, no, we want to incentivize you to stay here. That's what it's about. We're on an island. Billy, you talked about it the other day. We're on an island and it's shrinking, so it's shrunk in Northern California. It's shrinking right underneath our nose in Southern California. The numbers don't work. One of the bullets on the point paper I sent you guys was, prestige versus profit.
Right.
When in the 30s when Seabiscuit was running, I do believe that most owners probably were in it for the prestige of the game. And by the way, I'm in it for the fun of the game. Yeah, Billy called me out. I like to go have cocktails after winning races. Right?
I don't get invited to Ken's very much. I don't get invited to cocktails.
But the thing is, but I don't need to I don't use the game. And I already told you to put food on the table and gas in the tank, but I need to survive or I won't be here. At some point, I'm a businessman. At some point, most owners are businessmen, and women. So if we can't just totally ignore the metrics of the game and the P&L associated with it. So let us at least give us a chance to play even. And that's what I always try to do. If I can play even and have all this kind of fun and hang out with people, then that's where I'm going. So I just want to show there are things we should be and could be talking about that might improve the game as a whole. And I'm hypersensitive to Southern California because even though I don't live there, I run there. I love racing there. We have two of the most beautiful facilities there. And everybody that goes to the races there are passionate about the game. I mean, that's We can't afford to lose that.
Mm-hmm.
No, we really can't. And you're bringing up great points. But it's still, you talked about contraction and the fact that it's getting smaller, and you just look at field size and you look at the full count.
Right.
It's just one of those things that it's come to this almost boiling point of, and I could hear it in your voice when we spoke the other day. And that's one of the reasons I wanted you on the show, because I'm getting to that point and I don't want to be at that point. I love this game, and I wanted to, especially in Southern California. This is my home. This is where I've, made my life and made my business, and I love everything about it. And when we start talking about issues like this, I get frustrated because sometimes it's the same thing over and over again. And one of the things that's reason we talked about, we had Rapoli on last year and we had Pat Cummins on, is like, I want to see some change. And I don't know if Mike's the right person or Pat or whoever it is, or people talk about how the Jockey Club, what are they doing? I just want, and so I'm kind of feel like, I thought about this today. Michelle and I think are in the same boat as you, Mark, where we're starting different conversations now, and we're starting specific conversations, and we're asking questions about, okay, Mark Martinez brought a great point about, transparency and ownership. I literally spent a year of my life trying to get that done and didn't, because I was like, I got so frustrated, I hung it up. We talked about condition book consistency, but we talk about things like these states coming together. And those are the things that, unfortunately, I'm unaware of how do you get those people in a room, Mark? How do you create this?
Yeah, how do you get all those racetracks in a room where they can't agree on anything?
Right. We need a governing body that people buy into. Right. Look, Mike's on the right track. I don't know that he went about it the right way. Look, everybody has an opinion on this. I would probably, if I was in his spot, I probably would, if he wants to put money in the game to improve the game and standardize, take care of the business of racing and let HISA take care of safety and integrity.
Right.
I think he really would have gained a lot more credibility if he had just appointed Pat as the CEO, hypothetically, for example, or someone else.
Right. Or gone to a group like Toba, or, right. or right. some type of organization that actually has some, a lot of people say there is no clout, but you're right.
None of us have ultimate authority. Right. So the TOC has some say over owners in California and California only. The California Racing Commission controls and regulates racing in California, but the KYRC does it in Kentucky. Then you got the same thing in NYRA in New York and Florida. And, I'd like to figure out how to keep competition on the track and out of the boardroom, and so, how do we get there? I think everybody's ultimately fairly well-intentioned. I don't think the track operator, I'll use Stronach, I'll use Aiden, Nate Newby. I don't think these guys go in their office, close the door and say, let's figure out a way to piss off the owners. I don't think it works that way. I think they genuinely would like to see the game improve and get stronger and recruit new people into the game and drive handle and increase purses, and everybody's flourishing. But we have to agree to not look through the lens of our own perspective, and agree to look at it through the perspective of racing as a whole. And and again, kudos to Mike for stepping up, but I don't see that being accomplished.
Yeah.
And now maybe there's things going on. I've heard Pat say some things going on behind the scenes, but behind the scenes doesn't help to gain support, right? You've got to evangelize these. That's why I laid these small ones out. Take this and say, hey, by the way, just want you to know we listened to the Owner's Box podcast, and this thing about standardizing condition books and purse reporting in the condition book, we're taking that on. We're going to go to every TAC. And we're going to, and by the way, I'll tell you the way I'll tell you, I run my IT company. I give it to somebody. I say, look, this is what I'd like to get accomplished. Go forth, execute. Let me know if you need anything. come
Really,
back.
I mean, that could be done, right? There could be some external company that everyone just sends their condition books to, and they make them read the same way.
Well, you just have to go to the track / GMs and racing secretary and say, look, purses will be not state purse component will be excluded from the reported purse, or the other way around. It'll be included. However,
just for transparency, it should be excluded, right? Because, like you said, your friend was racing for pennies on the dollar at fairgrounds because he didn't see the clause. So it makes sense the way that we write it mostly, where it's in parentheses 17.5, for calibrants.
Well, just so you know, in California, we talked about rolling that 17.5 into the purse so that we could at least be on a level playing field. So when we report what our purse is, we don't include the fine print. We just say we're now 85, and the same thing. That's what really drove it, was tracks trying to fluff up the look of their purse until people started getting hip to it. And they're like, okay, I see the fine print now. But I'm just saying that's so easy. If we can't do that, for heaven's sakes, Billy, you know what? I'm going to dust off those wooden shaft Hogans.
Listen, you just enjoy Wemby. And you just you just keep here's the truth. We had you on today because we wanted your passion, and you're very smart, and we wanted your energy, and for me to see you, to have the conversation that you and I kind of had the other day about where you're at in this game, that's scary to me, because we cannot afford to lose people like yourself, Mark Martinez. You do so much for the game, and it's very important to have you as an owner who is able. I think that's a great talk. Excuse me, a great point.
Look, Mark is one of the few people that only doesn't look at his segment of the industry, right? He's not like, look, this is what the owners need. This is best for the owners. He's one of the few people that's like, look, we should help subsidize the trainers. We should do this for the condition book. He's looking at every aspect,
Important. It's very important. And it's something that we all need to keep an eye on. And you know what, we'll invite you back. And if you have any other ideas, of course, you have an open line to us. We appreciate you taking all this time. We hope people watch this, and we hope people understand that if you have an idea, come up. Let's start putting these things on paper. Let's start moving.
If everyone starts to have an idea and it gains traction, that's how changes get made, right? One person having an idea that multiple people believe in.
Well, I think I honestly believe there's long been good ideas out there. The challenge is finding someone to execute. And I don't even know who the hell it is.
Yeah,
I really don't. And it's not the NTA. They can do things without authority to gain support with all the stakeholders to affect change. But the change is owned at the jurisdiction and track levels in many cases. So, but I do think we can gain consensus if we can get the right stakeholders together and say, you know what, we are going to all agree to report purses this way. You know what? We are going to change the claiming rules to be the same for everyone, because it's a national game. It's not like it was in the 30s where you ran in New York and you're always in New York. You ran in Florida, you're always in, we're national now. And so we're going to have national rules, national governance, and the claiming rules are going to be the same for everyone. The end of the meet, 30 days after the horse is claimed, whatever you want to agree to. I'm lobbying for. I mean, I have an opinion, don't get me wrong, but I'm lobbying for, let's just be consistent.
Yep.
Right. Anyway, guys,
adapt or die, my friend. Adapt or die. Mark Martinez.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, Michelle.
Great seeing you, kid.
Thank you, Mark.
We'll talk soon.
All
right, buddy.
Bye.
It's Mark Martinez joining us here on the Owner's Box. Michelle, I'm sweating. It
makes you want to figure out something right now to get it fixed. Let's just get it fixed.
Yeah, it's so much bigger than that, because as Mark said, and when we talked about it at the start with the states, and I talked to Gary about this, Gary Fenton, who's not only my business partner, but is the head of the TOC. And it's tough to get stuff done when you're dealing with different jurisdictions. And that's just part of the issue with horse racing. I mean, it is. So how do we fix that? That's the question. And hopefully maybe just conversations like this, who knows who's listening, but maybe conversations like this will have an impact. And that's what we're here to do. And that's what we've done this year. I mean, Michelle and I will still have the fluff interviews with owners, but we're trying different things. And So far, so good. I think both episodes of the show have been really rewarding, at least for me.
Thought-provoking, hopefully.
Yeah, thought-provoking is a great call. What's happening at Santa Anita this week, Michelle?
Oh, so look, I'm gonna try something new since we're
Oh,
video.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna share my screen
What?
and then I'm gonna hopefully this works.
Wait, I gotta put my glasses on.
Are you?
I won't be able to
Let's
see.
see. Okay, hold on. I gotta find. I want to go to this.
This is
and I wanna
amazing.
share. Okay.
Is
So-
this gonna work? This is not gonna work. I don't see anything.
You don't see anything?
No.
Maybe you won't, but it should.
No, it would show up here. I've seen these StreamYards before.
Are you sure?
Yeah, we'll have to practice it for next time because it's not showing.
Oh, here we go.
it is. There it is.
Oh! Okay. It takes me a minute.
Look at this technology.
So,
Technology.
Coming up at the Great Race Place, Friday, we're going to have obviously live racing. We've got this flight line pin. We've got the golden hour. We're giving away a golf umbrella.
Oh.
Saturday is the cool day, though, Billy. It is the Cal Cup day. So we've got the Cal Cup Derby, the Cal Cup Oaks, the Don Valpredo Cal Cup Sprint, the Unusual Heat Turf Mile, and the Sunshine Millions Filly and Mare Turf Sprint. It's also burgers and brews, which I know a ton of people like. And of course, those tram tours are back, brought to you by My Racehorse. We're also doing the Vox Populi giveaway, which Cody's Wish did win the Vox Populi this year. And they're going to be doing like this big free print. It's actually really beautiful. It's frameable and it is free if you come to the track on Saturday. So look for that. If you're a player, $500 Cal Cup Day challenge on Saturday as well. And then for
sorry,
the what? It does pay to own a Calbred. And then for Sunday, we have the Las Ciénegas, which is down the Hillside Turf Course. And there is a live money contest that day as well.
Look at you, technology master. I mean, look at us. YouTube,
Woo!
technology. That was amazing. Mark Martinez. I mean, what a show. So did I tell you I was getting into golf?
Why?
Yeah. Well, my sons started to play. My youngest son picked it up. And then so his older brother started picking it up, and then I'm like, okay, fine. And I'm getting into it, and all my friends play, and it's good for it's good
all the
business.
Jockeys play.
All the jockeys. Oh, JJ Hernandez is begging me to come out and play. I said I'm not ready yet. He's like, we're not good, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. I need to be.
Ryan loves to play. Ryan D'Amato.
Yeah, Ryan plays a little lefty.
Right.
Thanks, Mark Martinez, for coming on today. Thanks, Michelle, for being a part of this.
Can I do two small things of note?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So first, it's just Full Patrol. You know how much I love Full Patrol.
Well, we can show pictures now.
You're right. You're right. So to be fair, none of these had pictures that I saw. They were all pictures of the stallions. But if I start to find pictures, I will do that.
Put them up next week.
Okay. So Golden Pal, first full, a Louisiana bred.
Nice.
Cyberknife, first full in New York. And Nashville, first full is a Maryland bred.
Fantastic.
Cool,
Good.
right?
Yes, very cool.
And then I just want to give a congratulations out to Richard and Connie Snyder, who are the Toba owners of the month. They run Cove Spring Farms. They used to be cattle ranchers actually in New Mexico, and they moved to the bluegrass, and they bred randomized. And so they've had their first grade 1 winner. There's a little couple. Yeah, we're gonna have them on. I put them on I've got like a massive list of people now. So they're on my list, but congratulations to them. And we will definitely be speaking with them in the future.
Michelle, you're the absolute best. To all of you who have watched this show or listened to the show, we appreciate it. Hope to spark some conversation, and we will see you next week here on the Owner's Box.